morning everyone. I am Shudha Gupta, the coordinator of this session. I welcome you to all the second session of the conference. This session will be chaired by Dr. Manuradha Chaudhary. Ma'am is professor in Center of Russia Study, School of Language, JNU. I invited Viśeṣa to welcome ma'am by giving a token of gratitude. I would like to invite the chair for the further two proceeding of the session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shona. Thank you so much for the introduction. So, as we are running short of time, it is already 11:30. I, on behalf of Jawaharlal University and Karnataka, welcome you all for this international conference on reimagining and reclaiming the knowledge traditions of Bharat beyond boundaries and definitions. So, it is my honor and privilege to welcome you all in this Jawaharlal University. So, I would like to welcome first our first speaker of this session, Dr. Akanksha Chandra and Dr. Kamla. The topic is aspect of non-dualism in the Indian knowledge system through the lenses of Ashtavakra. Let me introduce Dr. Akanksha. Dr. Akanksha has done her PhD from University of Delhi on the topic Issues of Ethnicity in Pakistan, a comparative analysis of Pakhtun and Baloch. She has been teaching in the English College for Women in the for the last 15 years. Her area of specialization includes international relations with having keen interest in South Asian politics. She has published extensively in peer-reviewed UGC-listed journals. Where is the mic? Oh, I'm trying to stand there. No issues. I thought. And she has been a convener of 4 international conferences and symposium. So I welcome you, Dr. Akanksha and Dr. Kamla, for your presentation. Please.
Good morning everyone, I am Dr. Kamla and this is my friend Dr. Akanksha. In today's presentation I will discuss the theoretical background of Advaitwad and my friend Dr. Akanksha will delve into the concept of Advaitwad as given in Ashtavakra Gita. Topic of our today's presentation is aspect of non-dualism in the Indian knowledge system through the lenses of Ashtavakra Gita. Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahme Napara. This is the essence of Advaitvadi philosophy. When we look at the historical background of Vedanta philosophy, we find that Vedanta is a monistic school of philosophy that focuses on Upanishad, the spiritual contemplation within the Vedas. It is a school of philosophy within Hinduism. The word Vedanta is a compound of Veda plus Anta. Vedanta means the end of the Vedas primarily. The word stood for the Upanishad, though afterwards its denotation widened to include all thoughts developed out of the Upanishad. The Vedanta school has several sub-schools including Advait, Viśeṣa, Advait, and many more. Advait, one of the most influential schools of Vedanta, which is one of the 6 philosophical systems of Indian philosophy, which are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa, which is also known as Vedanta. Brahma Sutra, also known as Vedanta Sutra, it has its historical beginning with the 7th century thinker Gautama, author of Mandukya Karika, a commentary in verse form on the Mandukya Upanishad. Advait is often translated as non-dualism though it literally means non-secondness. Shankaracharya is regarded as the promoter of Advait Vedanta as a distinct school of Indian philosophy. Vedanta source book is Badrayan's Vedanta Sutra. Badrayan, also known as Ved Vyas, The author of the Brahma Sutra could be considered as representing the thought of early Advaita, also called Uttar Mimamsa. Its beginning time is 1500 BC. Now, if we talk about the essence of Advaita, then we find that in Hinduism it was given by Adi Shankaracharya in 700 to 750 CE. It believes in non-dualism or oneness of existence. All Atman, soul, are one and identical to Brahma. Brahma alone is the ultimate reality. The phenomenal world is described as an illusionary appearance or Maya. We can experience the phenomenal world through avidya, ignorance. A Vedanti seek moksha by acquiring vidya, knowledge. To know the origin of Brahman, we have to understand that three things are needed for the creation of Brahman: creation cause, material cause, and instrumental cause. Universe is creation called as Jagat or a Chetan, Jad, physical reality and matter. Instrumental cause or Nimitta Karan, which is God, who made the universe. Material cause is Upadan Karan, which is Atman, or we can call it as Chetan or Chit. Now we have Brahma, God, Jagat as universe, and Jeev as Atman. According to Advaitavad, Brahma and Jeev are the same thing. It means material cause and instrumental cause are the same thing, but Jagat is mithya and created by Maya. The real Brahma is one, but due to Maya, the real appears as the world of plurality. The world has no separate existence apart from Brahma. The experiencing self, Jeev, and the transcendental self of the universe, Atman, are in reality identical. Both are Brahma. Plurality is experienced because of error in judgment, mithya, and ignorance, avidya. There is no difference in Brahma and soul. The nature of consciousness is central to Upanishad's thought. The Mandukya Upanishad define four states of consciousness: Jagrit, Swapna, Susupti, and Turiya, or we can call it waking, dreaming, sleeping, and pure consciousness. The Mandukya Upanishad defines pure consciousness as Turiya. Friends, now we need to know the epistemology at Vedanta. The Vedanta philosophy divided knowledge into two parts: Paravidya, spiritual knowledge, the Veda, the Brahmana, the Aranyak, and metaphysics of Gita or Paravidya or spiritual knowledge. Aparavidya, practical worldly knowledge. The knowledge of different phases of material world and human life is called aparavidya or practical knowledge. To gain both of these knowledges, Shankaracharya has encouraged the method of Shravan, listening, Manan, thinking, Nidhi Dhyasan, practice. Apart from these, Sadhan Chatushtaya is compulsory for attaining spiritual knowledge. When we try to understand metaphysics and philosophy of Advaita, we find that the classical Advaita philosophy of Shankara recognizes a unity in multiplicity, identity between individual and pure consciousness, and the experienced world as having no existence apart from Brahma. The major metaphysical concept in Advaita Vedanta tradition, such as Maya, Mithya, Vivarta, have been subjected to a variety of interpretations. On some interpretations, Advaita Vedanta appears as a nihilistic philosophy that denounces the matter of the light world. In Advaita, there is one reality. It may be accessed at two different levels. One is transcendental reality, Parasatta, which is the formless, qualityless, or we call it as Nirguna, Nirvachaniya, and Nirakara. Second is the phenomenal world, Jagat, or practical reality, Vyavharik Satta, comprehensible at the transactional level by means of the ordinary or sensory experience and reason. There are three planes of existence according to classical Advaita Vedanta: the plane of absolute existence, Paramarthik Satta; the plane of worldly existence, Vyavharik Satta, which includes this world and the heavenly world; and the plane of illusionary existence, Pratibhashik Satta. The two later planes of existence are a function of Maya and thus illusionary to some extent. There are two types of body as well. One is Sthul Sharira, which refers to the thinking and decision making are not observable from the outsides, is a gross body. And second type is Sukshma Sharira, which is what lies inside the body and not accessible to the naked eyes. The subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, involve the five senses organs, five motor organs, five types of energy, Panch Prana, that are said to activate the body, plus mind and intellect. Advaita postulates a state of consciousness devoid of thought process and sometimes called pure consciousness. The Vedanta accepts the distinction made by the Kathopanishad between happiness and the highest good. The highest good is the realization of the eternal universal self in man. Vidya leads to the realization. Atman can be realized by one who does practice self-control, desirelessness, and concentration of mind. Karma is not excluded from moral life. Prescribed action should be performed without any desire or motive. Karma purifies the mind, however, it is only a primary step to self-knowledge. Now friends, for gaining pure consciousness, antahkaran ki shuddhata, we need to know the way to inner journey. For this, we need to make a wise discrimination between the permanent satta and the non-permanent satta, nitya and anitya, in context to the self. Detachment from worldly life is required for this regard. The acquisition of the following six virtues are compulsory for pure consciousness. Some, controlling the mind so as to rest it formally one single objective. Dhamma, withdrawing senses from the object of pleasure. Titiksha, forbearance or enduring hardship without hardship. Upreti, preventing the mind from being controlled by external objects. Samadhan, end of doubts, for consciousness, for concentration in Advaita. Faith, sadhana, in the validity of teaching of the scriptures and the advice of a capable guru. For enlightenment or final realization, we need to understand that we can be Advaitavadi when we follow Vedantic methods. For self-realization, which is called knowledge path, Gyan Marg, the mark of controlling the mind, Dhyan, devotion as bhakti, action without attachment as Nishkam Karma. In Advaita philosophy, the emphasis on knowledge implies the focus of knowledge as both an and as a means. As an and, knowledge in this context is the knowledge through direct experience of the self, which involves knowing by being. When Atman directly experiences existence, consciousness, and bliss of the fourth state, which is the true nature of the I as it is, was, and would always remain the same. The nature of knowledge of Brahma is that I am pure consciousness, the self-ignorance of the Jeev, that I am limited is replaced by the Brahma knowledge that I am everything, accompanied by a re-identification of the self with the Brahma. And finally, we realize that Aham Brahmasmi, Main Hi Brahma. Thank you, friends. And now my friend will take it.
All right, good morning, everyone. Dr. Kamla familiarized us with the concept of non-dualism and how it is an essence of our Indian knowledge system. I would like to discuss how this idea of Advaitavad can be seen in the Ashtavakra Gita, also called Ashtavakra Samhita, which is a text based on the conversation between sage Ashtavakra and Raja Janak. Ashtavakra completely rejects the world of objects, emotions, and thoughts perceived through the illusionary body, mind, and intellect. To him, there is neither an individual ego, Jiva, creator, Ishwar, illusion, Maya, nor a universe, Jagat, other than the one infinite consciousness. This philosophy of Advaitavad or non-dualism challenges the perception of duality which we experience in the world, where we distinguish between the self and the external world. The Ashtavakra Gita consists of 20 chapters in which it presents non-dualism in a straightforward, direct and profound manner. Its teachings urge individuals to recognize their true nature as consciousness itself, beyond the distinction of the body, mind and world. In most of my slides, I'll be showing the shlokas or verses as given in Ashtavakra Gita, and in my explanation, I'll be elucidating on the meaning of them. Now, in the first verse, Janaka asks sage Ashtavakra 3 pertinent questions. First, how can knowledge be acquired? Second, how can liberation come? And third, how is renunciation achieved? Rishi Ashtavakra answers this by saying that if you aspire for liberation, reject the objects of the senses as poison and seek forgiveness, straightforwardness, kindness, cheerfulness, and truth as nectar. You are neither earth, nor water, nor fire, nor air, nor space as we know them as Panchtattvas. In order to attain freedom, know the self as the witness of all these, the embodiment of pure consciousness itself. A witness remains detached from all that is happening within and without us. If you detach yourself from the body and abide in consciousness, you will at once become happy, peaceful, and free from bondage. Here, Ashtavakra Gita teaches us that self is beyond mind and body. The true self is pure consciousness, unaffected by the physical or mental states. The self is the Sakshi, means the consciousness is the illuminator, but it isn't in any way involved in what it illuminates. Recognizing this truth leads to liberation. The sage says that self is ever free, therefore it needs no meditation. Like one who is trying to sleep, so long as he is trying, he is not asleep. Once having reached the sleep, the sleeper is no more trying to sleep. Similarly, so long as an individual is meditating, he has not apprehended the state of pure consciousness. So here Ashtavakra is saying that you do not have to reach anywhere to attain the eternal bliss. Eternal bliss is not an end which can be attained by means of meditation or other practices. So he is talking against the duality of means and end. Now Raja Janak here reiterates that Atma is also the material cause of the universe, just as earth is the material cause of a pot. The pot is nothing but the earth with name and form superimposed on it. So is this universe, but the self with name and form superimposed on it. Just as waves, foam, and bubbles are nothing but the sea and are non-different from it. So the universe is but the self, non-different from the self. Janak continues to verbalize his understanding by saying, just as the pot dissolves into clay, the wave into water, or the Bengal into gold, so the universe which has streamed forth from me will attain dissolution in me. With the dawn of knowledge, name and form vanish, and only the Atma remains like a wave. It becomes water when its name and form vanishes. He further says that the triplet categories of knowledge, knowable, and knower, they do not exist in reality. He says, I am the taintless self. Taintless self means free from the defects of the material world. And in myself, this triad appears to exist only because of ignorance. He continues saying that root of all misery is the sense of duality. There is no other remedy for this misery except the realization that all objects of experience are false and that I am the non-dual, pure consciousness and bliss. Atma is eternally free. It only appears to be bound. We think ourselves to be bound and seek liberation. When from the relative standpoint the universe is considered to exist, it has its basis in me, who am Brahman itself. But from the absolute standpoint, there is no universe. The body and universe are unsubstantial and that the self is pure consciousness alone. Ashtavakra talks about Laya, the state of dissolution. It is to be attained in 4 different stages, as it is impossible for anyone to achieve it in one leap. The first step is of being asanga, unattached. We renounce what we are attached to, but the pure self is unattached. The second of looking upon the universe as the same reality as the self. There is only one Atma. We are at present identifying the self with the aggregate of the body, mind, intellect and the senses. This identification prevents us from realizing the self. The third of considering the phenomenal universe as illusionary. This will be done by destroying the complex aggregation of mind, body, intellect and senses. Now fourth is of remaining unaffected by the phenomena of the universe, internal as well as external, the state in which no phenomena exist, the absolute. But Janak explains that in his vision of Supreme Self, he finds nothing to dissolve. What can there be in the one non-dual self other than itself for us to dissolve? It is beyond the beyond. He says that Even the very effort of Laya Yoga declares the existence of ignorance. Ashtavakra says that it is bondage when the man desires or grieves at anything, does reject or accept anything, does feel happy or angry at anything. Freedom is when the mind does not desire or grieve, does not reject or accept, does not feel happy or angry at anything. It is bondage when the mind is attached to any of the sensory perceptions. It is freedom when the mind is detached from all the perceptions. He tells us to be detached, witness of the things that are happening around and look at them with the eyes of steady wisdom, where there is no I, the perceiver. That is the state of freedom. Ashtavakra says that ultimately we must give up even our anxiety to fulfill the traditionally accepted and recommended great ends of human life: dharma, arth, kam and moksha. The self alone is real. All activities in pursuit of dharma, arth and kam are also unreal. The very anxiety for liberation or moksha is an illusion. Therefore, all these are to be renounced. This is the state of supreme dispassion or param vairagya. Upon the sense of infinite tranquility, Janak is trying to communicate to us why the spiritual state is so peaceful. Because of the realization of the eternal, ever free and ever blissful Atma. A man of self-realization transcends all consciousness of bondage and freedom. An ignorant man alone wants to shake off bondage and attain emancipation. To the liberated, there can be neither the sorrows of bondage nor the bliss of liberation. This state of infinite peace cannot be comprehended by us, as the instruments of comprehension that we have at this moment are incapable of conceiving dimensions of the infinite. Ashtavakra says, where is delusion? Where is the universe? Where is its renunciation? Or where is the liberation itself for the lower-minded? The ignorance of self procreates the delusion of the world of multiplicity. Ashtavakra explains that the liberated one is like a person in deep sleep. One who is in dreamless sleep is not conscious of his body or the world of plurality. To such an individual who is constantly living as the self, in the self, upon what is he to meditate? What is he to withdraw from? He has reached his goal supreme. Now in this last verse of the Ashtavakra Gita, Raja Janak says, where is existence or non-existence? Where is the unity or duality? What need is there to say more? Nothing indeed emanates from me. The teaching of Advaita is here put in a nutshell. It does neither assert nor deny. Assertion and denial are creation of thought, but the self is beyond thought. The self can neither be posited nor negated. Ashtavakra presents here that extreme form of Advaitism which does not accept any form of appearance. In fact, the question does not arise, for in reality the self alone exists, and therefore the question of position or negation of appearance cannot arise. The position of appearance is creation of ignorance. The negation is also creation of ignorance. Ashtavakra does not recognize even ignorance, for the assertion of ignorance implies something different from the self, which is impossible. Nothing can exist outside of the self. The thought of emancipation is consequent on the thought of bondage, but in truth there is neither bondage nor emancipation. Thought creates bondage and it also gives emancipation, but true knowledge transcends this cobweb of thought. I would like to conclude by saying that Ashtavakra Gita plays a crucial role in the Indian philosophy of non-dualism by presenting a clear, direct and transformative approach to self-realization and liberation. It emphasizes the immediate realization of the dualistic nature of reality, stripping away all illusions and encouraging a profound inner transformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akanksha Chandra and Dr. Kamla, for introducing us to the concept of non-dualism through the Ashtavakra Gita, from Indian philosophy. It was very interesting. And as the organizer has given me some instructions that we will take question answer at the end of this session. So you can have your seats, please. I would like to invite our second speaker, Dr. Abhishek Karmakar. His topic is Raja Ram Mohan Roy and his legacy in the making of democratic intellectual traditions in the 19th century, exploring indigeneity beyond the Western gaze. I would like to introduce Dr. Abhishek. Dr. Abhishek Karmakar is an associate professor of political science at Galsi Mahavidyalaya, West Bengal, India. and an ad hoc faculty at Rabindra Bharati University. He earned his MPhil and PhD from the University of Burdwan. His book, Making of Democratic Intellectual Tradition in India, was published in 2019 internationally, and his co-authored book, Federal Thought, is set for publication by Routledge in 2025. With over 41 research articles, he has also edited Challenges to Democracy in South Asia and co-edited 3 books. A regular columnist and media analyst, he has presented at conferences in Germany, Italy, and Bangladesh. Now I would like to invite you for the presentation. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. At the very outset, I would like to convey my heartiest gratitude to the Honorable Chair, Munurada Chaudhary Madam, and the dignitaries coming across the globe. Very good morning. Today, the topic I'm going to explore is mapping the indigeneity in Indian political thought in the 19th century and Raja Ram Mohan Rai's legacy beyond West-dominated Occidental perspective. So this is the outline of my presentation. At the very beginning, I will be talking about the statement of the problem, then objective and scope of the study, then methodology, literature review and hypothesis and research question, whatever. Then contributions of the political philosophers, mainly in 19th century. And then I will be talking about re-imaging and reclaiming indigeneity, that the revival of the lost tradition, and then concluding remarks. So at the very outset, I have bifurcated it into 3 areas. That what is the present constructions, that is from the West-dominated Occidental views, and then I would like to deconstruct them, and what we need to reclaim our indigeneity, that is the deconstruction part. What is the common construction? Basic assumption is that the idea of democracy, equality, gender equality, social justice, environmental consciousness, everything, whatever idea we have right now, are the contributions of the British colonial rule. Because it is believed that if they didn't come here, Indians would never be able to learn these ideas and and would be in the dark slumber. This is the common, actually this is the narrative we have already with us. But we have to deconstruct that. If we look at the idea of democracy, we can see that ancient Indian republics like Vaishali and the Sabhas and Samitis, institutions of the Vedic period, showcase early democratic traditions in India. And then in Kautilya's Arthashastra, it has discussed governance based on consultation and consensus. Then justice, the Nyaya and Dharma, the concept of justice in ancient India was deeply connected to Dharma, that is moral duty, what we know. And Manushriti and Arthashastra outlines the principle of fair governance, that is what we know as good governance. But it is another narrative that after the World Bank publication of the World Bank report in 1991, that the concept of good governance came. But in our ancient literature, in Manushriti and Arthashastra, we had that. Then Buddhist and Jain tradition promoted democratic discussions through sanghas, where members collectively made decisions based on reason and consensus. And then social welfare and justice, Ashoka's ethics emphasized social justice, welfare policies and ethical governance. And what we need to do now, what the basic objective of this seminar in fact is to reconstruct these narratives, and that is that these ancient principles continue to shape India's democratic values, advocating for inclusivity, dialogue and justice in governance, and that is what we need to do right now. So this is the statement of the problem. I have already discussed the existing knowledge on 19th century. Actually, this is the scope of my study. The 19th century Indian political thought has been largely viewed through a Western lens. This is the main problem, neglecting the conceptual uniqueness of Indian intellectual scholasticism. This paper seeks to deconstruct these narratives and highlights the indigeneity in Indian political philosophy. This research delves deep into the contributions of Indian political philosophers to the idea of tolerance, democratic norms and ethics in India. It explores the rich cultural tradition of Indian political philosophy, which emphasizes humanity, traditions, tolerance and democratic values. It reclaims the remarkable role of Bengali political philosophers mainly in the 19th century and in the making of a rich and intellectual tradition of democracy and liberal values in the context of Renaissance, modernity and post-enlightenment that has been largely remained unexplored in the existing literature so far. And this is the hypothesis or research question I have made. The dominant discourse on 19th century Indian political thought has been shaped by West-centric framework, West-centric narrative, overlooking the indigenous intellectual tradition of Bengal. This research hypothesis is that Bengali thinkers of the era developed a distinct political philosophy rooted in local socio-cultural context, which contributed significantly to India's democratic and nationalist consciousness by deconstructing the Eurocentric narratives. And these are the objectives I have already discussed. I'm skipping this due to paucity of time. And the first objective of this is that to explore the indigeneity or the indigenous thought in the tradition of Indian political philosophy, Indianizing India, that is what we need to do right now. Indianizing India beyond the Occidental trap of Western gauge. Because we always used to say that Cortillo is Indian Machiavelli, whereas we should call Machiavelli as Italian Cortillo, because Cortillo gave his idea almost 1,600 years ago. But this is the trap, this is the colonial hangover we are nurturing till date. This is the problem. So Indianizing India is what we need to do right now. And then to explore and delve deep into the contributions of Indian political philosophers, especially the idea of tolerance, morality and ethics in India. Then deconstruction of Western frameworks challenges Eurocentric interpretations. I have already told that. To analyze the articulation of democratic elements and principles in response to the engaging socio-political ideas in colonial India. That is what we need. To examine how democratic principles were articulated in response to socio-political challenges during colonial rule. So, the scope of my study is to examine the 19th century Bengal from a new perspective, focusing on the emergence of liberal democratic ideas among activist thinkers. I have named them as activist thinkers, not purely philosopher, neither they were activist, more activist thinkers. At the same time, they were thinkers too. And why Bengal? Because Bengal played the pivotal role in shaping modern Indian political thought during the 19th century. It was the epicenter of the Bengal Renaissance, where new ideas on liberalism, democracy and social reform emerged. So this is the research methodology. It is essentially a qualitative, descriptive and analytical research, and I have used some primary sources which include books, magazines, biographies, letters and newspapers, and it is basically an archival and interpretative research. And here I have bifurcated it into three kinds of texts. Number one, the books written by Western scholars on Indian Renaissance, that is Bengal Renaissance in the 19th century, then books written by Indian scholars and some original books I have gone through. And this is the main problem where we have seen that the books written by Western scholar, and that is the root of Western gauge, I think. And then what we need to have some reading of the original text of the Bengal Renaissance and the activist thinkers of that era. And at the very outset, I have started the work with Raja Rammohan Rai, the earliest torch bearer of the 19th century Bengal Renaissance. He had the idea of liberty, freedom of expression, rule of law, socio-economic thought. Everything was there in Rammohan's political thought. But popularly he was well explored in the area of sati and women question. But his idea in liberal thought, especially rule of thought, separation of power, these were the areas that remained unexplored, largely unexplored. That is what. Then the Derogians, their role in making of civil societal awareness, modernity against bigotry, superstitions and inculcation of rationality, vocal for Indianization of services, that were their areas. And then in the early second half of 19th century, we got Harish Chandra Mukherjee, another important thinker who remained unexplored. Harish Chandra Mukherjee, and he was the turbulent editor of Hindu Patriot Patrika. He inculcated the idea of representation in 19th century, idea of representation in 19th century colonial context. That is what we need to take into account. The anti-absolutist movement stood against Lord Dalhousie's annexation policy, unholy codification and penal laws, everything. And then in the second half of 19th century, we got another important thinker who remained neglected, that is Dwarkanath Vidyabhushan. He was the editor of two famous journals at that time, two turbulent journals which got deported several times during colonial rule. One is Som Prakash, another is Arjo Darshan. And he took significant role in the movement like Indianization of public services against, especially during the Ilbert Bill controversy and all. Sorry, one second. And then in the late 19th century, we got another important thinker come activist, Surendranath Banerjee, and who made a serious role in the making of a democratic intellectual tradition in 19th century Bengal, and that is through his Bengali Patrika. One of the great champions of representative form of government, having all democratic policies, great pioneer of the rising civil societal policies, civil societal awareness, and through his famous association called Indian Association, it was established in 1976. And these are the historical factors. I have identified 5 historical factors in the context of 19th century colonial Bengal. These are the 5 areas. That the first one was print media and political consciousness. From the early 19th century, Bengal witnessed, not only Bengal, that was that is popularly known as Indian Renaissance, and it witnessed the remarkable emergence of print media. Print media in terms of vernacular print media as well as English print media, and it actually shaped the popular public opinion at that time. And wherever they found the Indian thinkers and reformers, they found any of the arbitrary rule or unruly policy of that in that time, they stood against that, and thus they took important role in the making of a public opinion in the 19th century. Emergence of political association, that is another important factor. In the first half of 19th century, in 1937 or 1938, we got first political association, defined political association, that is Bengal Landholders Society and Jomindar Sabha. And in 1843, 19th century, I am talking about 19th century. In 1843, we got British India Association. These were the important factors. Then social reformation and to Hindu revival movement in the second half of 19th century, and rise of civil societal movement in fostering the democratic ambience. That is again very important. We have heard about the idea of Tocqueville and Robert Putnam. Tocqueville, in his book Democracy in America, he strongly argued that one of the basic reasons behind the success of American democracy is that the dense network of civil societal associations and civic engagement of the people. And this is what happened in the 19th century Bengal, in the from the very beginning of the 19th century, that is the rise of civil societal movement. And then in the second half of 19th century, especially in the last quarter of the 19th century, fostering of a reverential sense of national feeling. And after the establishment of Indian National Congress in 1985, we got the right momentum. So it is I have given here the chronology of the emergence of print media and political consciousness. In the early 19th century, we got Sangbad Kaumudi in 1821, Mirat al-Akbar in 1822, Brahmanical magazine, 3 edited by Raja Ram Monda in the early 19th century. And in the second quarter of 19th century, we got some important newspapers like Pertinent, the Hindu Pioneer, the Enquirer, Gyanan Nation, one of the important things, and Gyan Sindhu Torongo, the Bengal Spectator, and the Quill. These were the papers edited by the Dirogians, who are known as Dirogians, the young Bengal. The third quarter of 19th century witnessed the emergence of Hindu Patriot Patrika by Harish Chandra Mukherjee, Somprakash, Arya Darshan, I have already mentioned, and Amrita Bajar Patrika, edited by Shishir Kumar Ghosh, one of the important papers since the second half of 19th century, 1862. And then in the last quarter of 19th century, Surendranath Banerjee's Bengali Patrika and all. So, and about the political association, the dense network of various political and socio-cultural associations, though confined in urban area only, they took remarkable role in enhancing the political consciousness and public opinion throughout the 19th century. And it was initiated in 1815 by the Attiyo Sabha established by Raja Ram Mohan Rai. A huge number of political associations and civil societal associations, they emerged in a quick succession. The first two political associations, the Bengal Landholders Association, known as Jomindari Association, and then the Bengal India Society, were established in 1837 and 1843. The Indian League established in 1875, and Indian Association 1876, and Indian National Congress in 1885. They took important role in the shaping of a national reverential feeling among the Indians. So this is the chronology. If we go through Atmiya Sabha, that is from 1815, founded by Raja Ram Mohan Rai, one of the earliest reformist association it was. Then emergence of Sabhas and Samitis in 1830s and 1840s. Numerous organizations with social, political and economic objectives were established. SAGK, Society for Acquisition of General Knowledge. It was run by Dirogians, the young Bengal members of the Hindu college mainly. And then so many debating society and radical liberals in the second quarter of the 19th century, and in the late 19th century we got growth of reform movements and civil societal awareness, etc. So beyond Western lays the Hindu revivalism and the indigenous identity. From the very early 19th century, since Ram Mohan's era to Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's era, we got a tradition of Hindu revival movement. After the 12th century and 13th century, back-to-back foreign invasion, Shah, Khun, Pathan, Mughal and then British colonial rule. We had a history of authoritarian colonial rule, a history of hereditary monarchy and back-to-back foreign invasion. And it was 19th century that took important role in the reincarnation, or you may say the revival of Hinduism, revival of indigenous culture, indigeneity. Raja Ram Mohan Rai, influenced by Upanishadic philosophy and Islamic Tawhid, strongly advocated monotheism, the Akeshwarbad, that is what we know, monotheism, and rejected polytheism and idolatry in Hinduism. His Tarfat-ul-Mujahideen, a gift to monotheists, actually criticized religious superstitions across faith, including Hinduism and Christianity both. Then Swami Vivekananda, he advocated a spiritual nationalism, linking Hinduism with India's resurgence. That is very important. And he promoted Vedantic philosophy and Hindu unity as a response to Western influence. And then Bipin Chandra Pal, a leader in the extremist nationalist movement, blending Hindu revivalism with anti-colonial struggle, called for spiritual regeneration as a means for achieving political freedom. Then Aurobindo Ghosh, he combined Hindu mysticism with political activism, viewing India's freedom struggle as a divine mission, advocated Sanatana Dharma as a spiritual foundation of Indian nationalism in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, one of the earliest proponents of Hindu nationalism through his writings like his novel Anandamath 1882, introduced Vande Mataram, which became a nationalist anthem later, and emphasized Hindu Dharma and cultural pride as a foundation of national identity. So impact on Indian nationalism, how this national reverential feeling built in the second half of 19th century. It was a shift from social reform movement to cultural nationalism. In the first half of 19th century, we had a mild breeze that got transformed into a storm in the second half of 19th century in the name of nationalism. And this shift was very important. Why? Because while early Bengali Renaissance thinkers, they focused on reformation mainly, reforming Hindu society from superstitions and all. And in latter thinkers emphasized reviving Hindu identity as a source of national strength. Countering colonial influence, Hindu revivalism emerged as a reaction against Western education, Christian missionaries, and British policies that undermined indigenous traditions. That is very important. And then formation of political movement inspired organizations like Arya Samaj, Hindu Mahasabha, and later Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha, influencing Hindu nationalists through in the 20th century. Blending of religion and politics set the stage for spiritual nationalism, where political activism was intervened with Hindu philosophy and identity. The making of intellectual tradition for democratic thought. Actually, it was the era that rediscovered indigenous thought. It highlighted the indigenous political philosophy of 19th century Bengal moving beyond the Western framework, and then contributions of Indian thinkers. It examines how Bengali thinkers contributed to the development of democratic ideas and national consciousness in India, especially in the context of colonialism. It was a constant confrontation as well as confrontation on various occasions between the Indian philosophers, Indian reformers, and the Western unruly governments. So it challenges Eurocentric narratives, provides a non-Western perspective on Indian modernity, emphasizing indigenous intellectual tradition. And it bridges the past and the present. It enhances understanding of India's political evolution, offering insights for contemporary democratic discourse. Recognizing overlooked figures. The whole study actually tries to recognize as well as re-establish the lost ground. That is what we have lost through the Western lens and Western hegemony of Western thought. And strengthening national identity that I have already discussed. So these are the concluding remarks. The paper engages with conceptual foundation of political thought rather than just historical events or movements. It explores how Bengali thinkers articulated the ideas on democracy, justice, and nationalism within their own intellectual traditions. It challenges and deconstructs Eurocentric interpretations of political modernity and examines alternative epistemological perspectives rooted in Indian scholarship. It analyzes how concepts like freedom, governance, and sovereignty were understood and shaped by Indian thinkers, contributing to the broader discourse of political philosophy. From a closer introspection to the radical activities of Raja Ram Mohan Rai and his successors, one can find all the basic elements that shaped the liberal and democratic conditions in India: reform movement based on reason and humanity, importance to liberty, individualism, freedom of press, rule of law, separation of power, freedom of belief, consciousness of rights of an individual, importance of public opinion as a basic condition of legitimacy and governance, secular religious thought based on reason and tolerance, economic thought, and constitutional government. That's all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abhishek Parakar, for finishing your presentation on time. I would like to congratulate you for a wonderful presentation and sharing with us your thoughts on deconstructing the Western narratives and constructing the Indian narratives. Thank you so much once again. Now I would like to invite our third speaker, Shrimati Shri Nischala Manyam. She's from Hindu University of America, Florida, and her topic is Genesis of Conflict, Insights from Indian Text. I would like to introduce Shrimati Shri Nischala Manyam ji. Srimati Shri Nishala Manyam is a research scholar of dharmwiki.org, IIT Mumbai, pursuing doctoral studies at the Hindu University of America in Indian psychology, uniquely qualified with degrees in science, arts, humanities in biotechnology, medical technology, Sanskrit and psychology. She explored the relevance of Indian knowledge in contemporary issues. At dharmawiki.org, she formulates policies and standards, guides authors, identifies potential contributors, forges institutional collaborations, engages in translation, scale-up activities, and writes articles, research reports, textbook material, and conducts educational talk. Currently developing a website on Indian psychology, she will design courses under the Digital Creative Economy project at IIT Mumbai. I welcome you to this session.
Thank you. I thank everybody for giving me an opportunity to speak in this honored sessions. Today's topic is Genesis of Conflict, Insights from Indian Texts. Conflict is basically everywhere in this world, and it causes distressing psychological states, including stress. Today we try to understand how conflict can be, how Indian perspectives on conflict will help us more develop. And I draw upon my previous speakers like Abhishek ji, who mentioned about Sri Aurobindo and his contribution in the spiritual realm and how it promoted nationalism. So similarly, if we take, before I start, I would like to express my gratitude to our rishis and the Guru Parampara. I come from IIT Bombay. I work at IIT Bombay. I thank Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan ji and Professor Ashish Pandey, and my mentor, Professor Devidatta Mahapatra from Hindu University of America. So with this, I move on to the outline of my presentation, which includes various topics, mainly about how the mind and consciousness play a role in conflict psychology, and comparison of Western and Indian perspectives a little bit. And I move on to conflict typology, which has not been very much explored in both Indian and Western perspectives. And I support that with the transformation studies that are supported by a case study which I took up with Maharshi Vishwamitra. Then I discuss the scope and limitations of this study. So if we look at the term conflict in English, it has various connotations, antagonism, etc. I mean, everybody is quite familiar with that. But when it comes to the actual definition, there is no unique definition available. I have gone through quite a few of them, and it just says opposing parties and struggle, status, power, resources, etc. But when we come to try to understand what conflict depicts in Sanskrit, I have seen there are terms like Dvaita, which means duality, separation, diversity, etc. In terms of Yuddha, also conflict is mentioned. Kalaham, Samparaya, Vipratisheda, Vivada, Vipratipatti. All these are primarily Antardvandva. I would be referring to Antardvandva or the inner mental conflict to a greater extent. So, drawing your attention to mind and consciousness, I would say that mind is the interface between the body and spiritual self. And Yamati Sagati Bhavet, which is from Ashavakra Gita, I will elaborate on that a little later. But when we talk about existence, fundamental human existence itself, it's Deha Buddhyat Dasosmi, Jiva Buddhyat Tvadamshakaha, Atma Buddhyat Tvameva Aham Iti Me Nischita Mati. And this is a sukti which is, it has unknown origins, but it has been mentioned and has been widely discussed among philosophies. And I draw your attention to Deha Buddhi, Jiva Buddhi and Atma Buddhi. And if we look at that, and all this is Menishita Manaha. So manas is the primary interface or the connections which actually describe the experiential aspects of an individual in the outer world. And Chalmers has cited two experiences as a phenomenal concept, the Jagat, where it's pertaining to the feelings and perceptions, and the psychological concept as a basis of behavior, which promotes behavior in a human being. But the hard problem of I experience that everybody experiences within ourselves as a subjective experience, what is that I has been largely undefined till now. And if we look at, I'm trying to briefly run through the mind and consciousness. I will be explaining more with the images which are more easier to understand. So consciousness in the Indian philosophy has been on the transcendental level, the transactional level. Rao and Paranjpai's psychology in Indian traditions has clearly given this explanation, and it helps us understand that one is based on the principle underlying reality, and the other consciousness is the principle of individual sentience, and the empirical self, the physical body that everybody knows about. And so consciousness is the key role concept, and it distinguishes Indian philosophy from other. So if we see the Western concept, even though there is a kind of a hole in between, I would say, because beneath ego, what is there, nobody knows. So if ego and ego functions are considered, and consciousness is an aspect or an attribute of this ego, that is how the Western thought process has always been thinking about. And if we look at the outside of this ego, you have the empirical self or the body, and the agentic self, that the cognition of I think, I feel, I do, and the volition aspect, like the cognition, emotion, and volition are the fundamental aspects of existence. So if we look at the human psychic self with respect to Indian thought process, we have a whole big scenario underlying that buddhi, ahankara or chitta, which was the ego functions mentioned, like ahankara, which gives individual separation, or is the underlying principle of individuality. But the understanding that, of course, the Brahman and the Purusha that are shown here as separate are actually one and the same. They have an underlying ground reality, because I am considering the aspects from Advaita Vedanta and Sankhya. I have tried to project it here in such a way. We have the Atman concept from Nyaya also. So we have a whole range of higher consciousness, the Samadhi and Turiya states, the mind, the waking, all the states that are explained, and none of this is found in the previous explanation of how Western concept of self is undertaken or discussed. So if we see the consciousness, why is it important? I will be coming to that. So when we come to the ego consciousness, I am referring to as ego, but it is actually the only ahankara element, because the buddhi, the discriminatory, is ego function rather than ego has not been clearly defined. So if we go inward, there is also an inward zone when we come to Indian thought. So continuing with that, if we see the outside world is perceived by the senses, and the manas, the ahankara and the buddhi are playing a role in understanding what these outer senses are, and then there is something called pure consciousness. It is this pure consciousness, or the Purusha according to Indian thought, that actually reflects, and it reflects on the buddhi, and that is it. That is the element that is making something conscious. Whereas it is ego in Western thought, but here we have this higher consciousness which is actually bringing about this aspect of consciousness within a human being. And this is the fundamental level, or the transcendental level. As we see further, I will go further for that. So if we see the self in the Indian perspective, it is, we have like clear-cut identity, which is social, biological, psychological and transcendental. Whereas the transcendental zone is totally missing when we come to the Western psychology. So a personality is totally based on bio-psychosocial, spiritual identity, which is fundamentally lacking elsewhere in any kind of philosophical thoughts. So Kathopanishad clearly explains the role of the Atman. The reason why I put this up here is to know the distinction between the consciousness or the Atman level who is residing. Again, this is at the individual sentience level. I am not talking about the Brahman level here. It is clearly the rider of that charioteer or the body, the chariot. So Atman with respect to consciousness is a driving force for action within human body. But there is one level higher, and that is transcendence, which is not thoroughly recognized. And its role in conflict is what I would be further elaborating on. So mind, I'll just rush through with this. So mind in the Vedic concept, it has a dual purpose, both clouding the consciousness. So here we know that there is a difference between something called higher than the mind, which is the pure consciousness. And then mind is also a support system to sustain life. Without mind as in ego, in the ego functions, you cannot move on with your daily activities, which is required. So Advaita Vedanta says that it is mind is an internal organ, antakarana, with functional aspects of knowing, thinking, feeling, etc. Then Sankhya considers Chitta mainly. So with all the functionalities assigned to Chitta, but the Antakarana is the one that takes in the reflection and from the pure consciousness of the Purusha, and that is the slight difference or the nuances here. Whereas when we come to Nyaya Vaiseshika, there is a little good difference over there in comparison, where mind is actually restricted to the manas of the Sankhya, Yoga and Advaita. The manas segment over there that you see. So mind is actually a sense organ, it is not the cognizer. Atman is absolutely recognized as a cognizer, and that is where the perceptions, the cognition actually starts. So this is fundamental for our understanding of where our conflict would start. Why are we perceiving conflict, and why is the cognition process limited to the brain? So has it been completely established? No. We have quite a few papers to refer to that and say why, and till now Chalmers has never been explored completely. So all psychological, so now I try to explain the difference between what is spiritual, what is psycho-spiritual and what is psychosocial, because they are confusing terms. And I'll just quickly go through this before I go to that. So the activities of the mind, because manas, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, they have separate activities. I'll just summarize it in one go. It is the central processing unit of the sensory inputs. It takes in sankalpa, it has the features of sankalpa and vikalpa. Buddhi is the executing function. And ahankara is the one, the individuating principle that creates a sense of individuality within a human. And chitta, the memory and impressions of the past life. There are some differences here based on the different philosophies and darshanas that we have, but in general this is an accepted differentiation for activities. Sankhya Yoga and of course manovrittis are the same as chitta vrittis of the yoga. So I'm trying to give you a comparison between a little bit with Advaita Siddhanta and yoga. So we have something called the expression. So many people talk about mental disturbances. Has Indian philosophy ever explained about mental disturbances? So there is something called Viśeṣa Sahabhuva in the yoga system. I think one. So they talk about suffering, dejection, shivering of the body parts, uncontrolled or rapid inhalation. Exactly the same thing is mentioned even in modern psychologists. Our psychotherapist is sitting here. She can. So if we come to conflict psychology. What is conflict according to Western definitions? So this is from American Psychology Association, and their theories are mainly psychoanalytical, and we know Freud's theory, and it is incompatible instinctual impulses or between incompatible. So mostly we find the word incompatible somewhere, something which is incompatible. But what exactly is incompatible has never been explained. Then if there is something, why don't they accept it? Because Engler has put forth that psychoanalysts will have difficulty in appreciating the possibility of transcendence. Fundamentally, transcendence is totally an eliminated thing in Western psychology, because it involves going beyond personal identity. And it's very simple and it is very easy to understand and say that anything beyond personal identity has never existed in the Western society, and they consider that as psychopathology rather than as transcendent, or something that has a subjective experience has never been explained. So I quickly draw your attention to, if we say that buddhi, which has two dimensions of acting outwardly and inwardly, connecting on the inner side to the higher self, and on the outer side to the sense organs, or as a motivator for sense organs, recognition, cognition, all these. When we look at the Jagat aspect of it, buddhi turns itself outside. But as it is, again, I'm not delving deeply into how that actual process happens, because the higher self has reflective and projective aspects onto buddhi, and the buddhi either can turn inside and accept and explore the higher consciousness on one side, and that is where the Indian thought rests. That is where cognition is picked up because of this reflection. Or even if we go to the Advaita Siddhanta, we still have, even though it is Maya that is being explained over here, but Maya also has that level of sentience which they, like our previous speakers were explaining, I think Advaita Siddhanta by then. So we have that element existing, but normal human mind tends to go outside and look at outer world. Whereas that is where the Western thought is focused on, whereas the Indian thought focuses on consciousness and mind-consciousness relationship, rather than mind and body-brain relationship, which is more prevalent. If we look at the characteristics of conflict psychology, where do we? I'm looking at the fundamental. There are hundreds of others which I will mention. We have many other constructs which refer to social psychology and social conflict in that per se. But my particular aspect in this paper goes into the spiritual conflict, which Sri Aurobindo had also mentioned. So it talks about lack of spirituality. If we say the level of transcendence, so the first point refers to the level of transcendence, and it is a disconnect from the higher self. It creates dichotomy within. So fundamentally, even none of us know. So that is where avidya comes in. None of us know where and how we are experiencing that avidya, and how can it translate into psychological problems like ahankara when it comes into existence. It defines this individuality. It creates the duality of the self and the other. Then we have the action of kleshas, and kleshas as they refer to the inner yogic elements, which are 5 in number, and it entangles one into the karmic cycle. Then the result is that it motivates us to go into karma, which is more cyclical in nature rather than releasing us. So that is also a psycho-spiritual domain. And the Shadripus, we even have Chitta Vikshepas, Antarayas also that play along with Kleshas. I'll be mentioning that later. Then the Shadripus, which are the 6 enemies, internal enemies, which overpower a person's mind, and they control and destabilize the mind rather and act at physical and social levels. So if these are the contributors to conflict, we can say that spiritual, I claim to, I base my talk on basing the spiritual discord which fundamentally exists within all of us. Everybody says this is existential anguish. So what is the anguish there? Everybody tries to express it, but it is a conflict which is running internally within our psychological and transcendental levels. And Prakriti and Purusha, so how do we define this? What exactly is that? Everybody talks about Prakriti, Purusha. What is it? So there is a misidentity element, that is Atman with Sharira, that we attribute to each of us, and then there is this lack of buddhi. Here I don't mean to say buddhi is not in the worldly sense, but buddhi is the discriminatory sense rather than a worldly sense. Then we have ahankara, ahambhava, abhimana. Again, abhimana is talked about extensively by Sri Adi Shankaracharya, the jnata karta bhoktatva. And we have kleshas, shadripus, which I have outlined here. So the genesis of conflict is at these 3 levels. Ma'am, I would request you for 5 more minutes. I'll quickly try to wind up. Then there is the spiritual level, which I have said that is proximity of two disparate entities, mistaken identity, or attributional error of Vedanta, for example, where avidya is there, we super adhyasa is applied, and all these kind of errors are happening at the transcendental level of a human being. And psycho-spiritual level, we have ahankara and kleshas that are active. At the psycho-physical level, we have like shadripus, chitta vikshepas, all these come into picture. So again, alluding to this previous simpler way, I am trying to explain here what is the mind-consciousness connection, which is purely on the spiritual or transcendental level, and the rest of the activities happen in this psycho-spiritual zone, the second down from the buddhi. And nowadays everything is being attributed to good actions. Everybody wants spirituality, and what is that spirituality? Where is that level? So if we, I see this, what exactly is spirituality is can be seen from this shloka where Ekashloki of Sri Adi Shankaracharya, where he clearly explains like what is it that gives you light. So it is by the day the sun, by night the lamp. So like this the third eye, and then you see what is it that knows the intellect, and that is the eye, and that is this transcendental level of thinking. Whereas if we come to spiritual zone, spirituality, we have a lot of research from 1999, I think Zohar. She has put out something called spiritual intelligence. But that still remains as something fostering human values, compassion, honesty, gratitude. These values itself are being considered as spirituality rather than at the transcendental level. So I propose that the Western thought, which has totally eliminated the level of transcendence, it has been totally eliminated, and this itself is being considered as spirituality. So there is this difference between psycho-spiritual or psychological and spiritual levels. So quickly, these are the Pancha Kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and starting with that, avidya itself is the foundation. So there is a slight difference between asmita and ahankara, like why are they, because there is a confusion, thought I'll resolve that. Asmita is more related to the self-worth, external experiences of I exist, I supremacy, I kind of did this, I am interested in that. Whereas ahankara itself is a primary principle. It exists at a higher level. Asmita is at a physical level. So when we see ahankara, we cannot say it is being loosely translated as ego because of the, as everybody been saying, because of all this colonial terminologies that we have been growing up with. So there is that difference, and here I draw your attention to conflict, and man's primary problem lies at the inner and psychological levels, and it can only be resolved by bringing about a change in man's nature, rising above the higher level of consciousness. So quickly I will give the comparison. It's I have already told this. So mainly Western thought has lack of transcendental experiments also. They totally don't believe it, so transcendence was never even considered. And there's no distinction between mind and consciousness. There is a dualistic and reductive study approach. And the research is totally limited to the brain level. And Indians had already recognized, our rishis had recognized that the world was one civilization, humanity is one. So mind consciousness was more explored over there, and intrapersonal conflict has a psychological basis, whereas it is a transcendental basis here. Materialistic worldview, we had the spiritual worldview. That is the reason why we want to avoid conflict in the ground level, at the root level itself. Integrated human activities are pivoted on transcendental unity. Here it is just social, everything is reductive, dual. So going forward, I now bring you on to the understanding of conflict typology, because I root it on Sankhya Sutra. What is Trivida Dukkham? So I have come up with this. So we have talked about it on the higher self. So coming down the Adhyatmika, Adi Daivika and Adi Bhautika levels, and how Adhyatmika level has a conflict within the self. Adi Daivika level involves individual and an environment. The Bhautika is more referring to social conflict between individual and other human beings. And any disharmony in socio-cultural framework. Thank you. Any disharmony in any of these levels will start at the Adhyatmika level. So the rationale for that I have just explained. And this is Adi Daivika, Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika, and how it can be resolved by yoga for psychophysical and even transcendental. Here you have transcendental level of yoga applications for resolution, and how you anchor the mind in dharma, etc. So Adi Daivika, it also refers to rhythm or chandas, and that is where the order of the nature becomes distorted. And here I quickly allude to why we need conflict transformation rather than resolution, settlement, etc. So there is a lot of negative perception. So it depends on people's choices whether we want to escalate it or not, and we have to adopt a psycho-spiritual way. So conflict transformation, we need to adopt the path of Nachiketa and look for more of Shreyas over Preyas. And this is the reason why, like if we see the elements of conflict for Maharshi Viswamitra is Asmita, Raga, and how the internal elements could have played a role in bringing about a conflict within him, and how his thoughts and opinions had changed the scenario, how it led to a war between Maharshi Viśeṣa and due to the wish-fulfilling cow. Then we have, due to what his actions when Trishanku was unjustly requesting for ascending to Swargaloka, how the cosmic laws were defied. Then how his emotions and kleshas, the asmita was playing a role, kama, krodha, and how he lacked control, and how in all these things, one thing that he kept on doing was tapas, which finally brought him to the highest level of transcendence. So here I allude to the Ashtavakra Gita. It is up to us to choose what we want. So it is how our mind takes us. And the scope here, as I said previously, there are a lot of possible ideas that are there, probably because one thing is non-conformity. Then we have a lot of environmental change. There is a change in Paravidya because it is barely accessible. So, in conclusion, we have many of psychological things to be fixed, and which can remove conflict within ourselves, and we have to bring in harmony with nature, and a lot of references here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nishala, for taking us through the roots of Indian philosophy, how Western philosophy is different from Indian philosophy regarding the when we are dealing with the concept of conflict. So congratulations to you. Now I would like to request Professor D. Pramod for presenting his paper. His topic is Copyright of Vedas, Bharat World Veda Day, and I would like to introduce him. Professor Pramod, he has done his MSc and PhD from University of Delhi. His PDF from University of Los Angeles, USA. In the education field for the past 40 years, served in Rajdhani College, University of Delhi, as Associate Professor in Physics. On foreign assignments, he has gone to Bhutan, Oman, and USA for teaching and research. His passion is to study metaphysical analysis of Vedic science. He has authored nearly 50 research papers. Man in Prison, Rest in Peace, Britain, A Letter to God, All Efforts Are for Soul, etc. are some examples. So now I request Professor Pramod to present his paper, and I also request sir to kindly adhere to the time. We have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Good afternoon to all the delegates. Thanks for the giving opportunity to speak in this dais. This is a thought I got generated when I was presenting a talks in Tanjavur conference. So many people are, vice chancellors are there, Indian government was there, and some Germans and French people are there. They're working on a Vedas and everything. I got an idea. What is this basically? What happens after 100 years and 1000 years? Where we stand? Who are the owners of the Vedas? Who are this? Presently time is okay. What happens afterwards? This, I got idea, I talked to all the persons, even I talked to the Vice Chancellor of JNU and Vice Chancellor of CS Sanskrit University and Vice Chancellor of my Malari University and Deans of Delhi University and law colleges, judges also spoke to them. They said, Pramod's topic is good. It's the right time, you can talk to the government of India and propose it and present the talk. When I spoke to Vice Chancellor, Pramod, why don't you give a talk in this conference? I met her Vice Chancellor of JNU recently, January. She has presented the talk, asked me to present it. So I'm going to explain what is the importance of the Vedas, why we have to take action now. Please. The paper deals about the Vedas, analysis, Vedic culture, and disputes, you have patents, turmeric, basmati, vastu, Veda gene pH, Indian sculptures, copyright of Vedas, and International Yoga Day, World Meditation Day, World Veda Day. All these things we have it. I'm not going to details, but I'll tell you briefly. What I want it, because we want a copyright of Vedas. Next. This. Bharat, India, is a center of spirituality. It's a center of spirituality. Wherever you go in the world, people come to India because spirituality is there. If you don't develop, they may not come to India. Then, people believe spirituality and culture and traditions. We believe it. For generations coming. Nobody denies that one. Even I may go, you may go. People still believe spirituality and culture and traditions. Vedic scriptures, we have Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas. And as I said, no, Gita and Ramayana, Vedas are important to exist in India. Then, Vedas talks about ancient suspense tests, knowledge and wisdom, oldest of human race, the oldest one. Then, eternal is the eternal. There is no date of birth for Vedas. Nobody knows it. Our sages were very good. They did not want to claim, I am the owner, and there is no mention. As per the Gita, whoever is born, there is a death will take place. Whoever is born on the earth, death will take place. But there is no date of birth for Vedas, so there is no date of death. It will exist. It's called eternal. Sanatan we call it as. At the creation of the universe, Supreme Lord has given to Brahma. Who has given Vedas? Brahma has given to, Vishnu has given to Brahma all these Vedas. Next. Then, contributors. Who contributed? Neither you and me. It has come thousands of generations and thousands of Indian sages and meditation by Divya Drishti. They sat to the Himalayas and everything, with the Divya Drishti they generated, with the perception they have given for us. It's basically a gift for the mankind. Then, next, please, previous. Yeah. Vedas deal about the philosophical information, about absolute truth. It talks about absolute truth, what's the truth. Then it talks about the universe, nature, and living entities, science and engineering subjects, invention based on Vedas. Almost all the inventions you can take it, they are based on Vedas. They have given some information to us. Poets, scholars have given some information. From that, scientists have gone that place. Then, appreciates, objectives, purpose of life. Why do you want all these things basically? Why do you read the scriptures? Why do you read the Vedas and everything? Basically to understand the purpose of life. Purpose of life. Madam, please. What is the purpose of life? What is my aim? Why I am born here? Then talks about eternal principles. Talks about self and God realization. Unless you realize yourself, unless God relation is not possible to go liberation, to attain the liberation. Then attain liberation. Spiritual environment. All the Vedic scriptures will give the spiritual environment for it. That's what we require. Then human values. It gives a healthy and peace and harmony. Appreciates. All Hindus will appreciate this one. Noble laureates and Westerns, all noble laureates, they did not get a complete answer from the foreign countries. They visited India. After meeting with so many scholars, sages, they got satisfied. What is the Vedas? Basically, the neurosurgeons and doctors, when they come to the consciousness, they will fail. Science will fail. Even go to hospitals. When the last time in the bed, doctors will say, okay, I can't help it. Go and pray to God. So that is there. Consciousness is the most important. Next. Then, initially one Veda was there. Initially there was only one Veda. Then Veda Vyas are divided into 4 Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Athur Veda, Sama Veda. Then subdivisions we have it: Smahita and Brahmanas, Arenka, Upanishad, meditation, spiritual knowledge. Other religions also will come afterwards. Then we have the Egyptian, Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Christianity, Islam, and others. So many religions have come. Next. Then we have ancient period. In the old period, there only Akhand Bharat was there. Only Akhand Bharat, nothing was there. Then we have the trusty people were there. People are trusty. There is no cheating. There is no stealing probabilities. Then only transformation going Guru to Shishya and father to son. Things were going from Guru to Shishya and father to son. Things are going from generation to generation. There is no question of copyright. There is no question of theft there. Now problems have come. Now, no authorship. They did not know authorship. Let it be anybody. They are against humankind. Anybody can and human value they wanted them. It's the whole world universe they mentioned. Then there was no IPR at that time. The IPR as concept has come when the research ethics failed. There is no trust. I am writing somebody copying. There was no IPR from 20 years back. IPR generated in India last 30 years, more popular. So nothing was the previous thing. Why? Because research ethics, we are missing it. We are copying somebody's work without your ability. Then, now many countries have come. Akhand Bharat was there, now many countries have come. Different languages have come. Different religions have come. And lot of troubles are going in the world. Disputes are there. Then copying and stealing, the main problem now. Advanced science and technology has come. Now new softwares have come. Then artificial intelligence is the most dominating now. It can lead to anything now, maybe good or bad. Then translating problems. It's a good, but there is a drawback also that I am going to highlight that now. Then original Indian scriptures, intellectual property rights. Next. Now, in the past, Vedas were there, they are burned. Nalanda Vishwa, yesterday was talking, the library was burned 3 months. So much information was lying. We have only 1/4 of the information left for us. 3/4 lost. So much work they have done it. And to get, may not get also now. We don't have the scholars. Then we have the stolen also. People have stolen that for the research purpose. They have got Germans, France, well, they have done for good purpose, I'm not blaming them. But it's stolen there, they are working on this one. Sanskrit test. Others were unable to read and write. Because if I want to steal it, I should know Sanskrit language also. Without the no meaning at all. And without that, I can't either appointed somebody or I learn myself Sanskrit language, read it. So there is no copyright, there is no stealing position was there. Now, Vedic scriptures were safe. Till now, they are completely safe. From now onwards, there is a threat may take place. Then now, new softwares have come, changing the languages. Telugu to English, English to Hindi, Hindi to Malayalam, Germany, anything they can make it. They can write by copyright. Then, artificial intelligence changing now. Then, translating. Then, foreigners, Japanese, Chinese, German, France, well, they are doing very good, we are not blaming, but they are translating. Now, translating completely the script in their languages. Previously, translating only summaries. They are changing the complete script. They are changing completely script. After some years, it may go together. Then, if it continues, who are the owners? Vedas after 100 years or 1000 years. I am not talking about 10 years, 15, I am talking 100 years, 1000 years. Then, they claim as the owners after a few centuries. Next. Now, International Yoga Day, I am pointing out why we have to claim this one. International Yoga Day. Yoga is for health and for self-realization. Come long back. Long back. And yoga is important for the spiritualism, the basic thing. Once you do yoga, then only become systematic, disciplined life. There's a part, initial, technique. Then, designed by Indian sages, control the body, mind and soul, then only you can read the scriptures. Then only go to the spiritualism. Then, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi converted through UNO as the Indian patent. Yoga was previously, US was claiming as a yoga. When Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister, went and argued UNO, it was declared the International Yoga Day. And every year, now we are celebrating at the June 21st. Now, another one, World Meditation Day is also there now. Meditation is the oldest science, it's basically science, meditation. We are incapable of understanding the science of that because it's not been taught. And it's a science basically. Now, it's the oldest. Indian science of practicing spirituality. Without meditation, you cannot do anything. That controls the body and soul. For that, people say, spend every day 5 minutes. Spend 5 minutes. Either sit in under the tree or go to some remote place and think about yourself, your skills. Meditation. That generates. Meditation. So I'm standing here, I'm praying for my son. It's a meditation science. Then, sages could reveal innermost thoughts by meditation. WHO recognized December 21st as World Meditation Day. Realize the importance of meditation, they declare. Next. Then, turmeric patents. You know, this one recently happened. People, traditional crop in India, antiseptic ancient period, used in the food items and painting colors. India never thought of patents. They never thought it actually. We don't need here, we are the owners, but realized when USA got a patent in 1995, they claimed the turmeric is their patent. Then government of India fought with WTO and US Patent Office, and finally India won the patent in 1997. Now, next, basmati rice. See, these all thoughts I generated with the Google and talked to so many people. Then, basmati rice is Indian crop. People know from generations. And main crop of India. Texas US-based company has got patent in 1997. Then, India fought with a 50,000 pages report. Some scientists have noted how can go to US. It is an Indian product. And they informed the government of India and they wrote a 50,000 report and argued, filed a case in USA. India won the patent in 2019. It took 20 years. Next. Then, Veda GmbH. See, whenever you say Veda, we see as scripture, authentic. There cannot be lies in that one. That concept we have it. Now, German company Veda GmbH, computer software, claimed the rights over the name Veda for computer products in the world. अरे वेदा को कंपनी क्या जरूरत है? Veda deals with the slokas, deals with the books, deals with the literature. Why are you comparing to these things? I go to website, Veda, I think something literature about वो computer का पढ़ा हुआ है, some other instruments, some makeup instruments are there, not related. Then, misleading the divine customers. Then, companies missing the divine name of Veda. People are thinking as authentic company for Vedic product books, but using the advertising for their material products using the name of Veda. Next video. Now, there's another website, www.veda.com. What do you think about this? When you open this, we think, okay, something good information there. I'm getting information from the Vedas, some scriptures, but you don't find it. The same thing information. Now, UK nationalist Nicholas Silverstone used Veda for the web address for a computer software company. Then this man, who is that? Veda GmbH and Hindu literature filed a case. Then he started arguing that Veda is nothing to Hinduism. Veda is nothing to us. But how can it possible? He won the case. Now, Vastu. Vastu is the Indian origin word. We know that Vastu. But some people in the world, German architecture firm got the trademark of the company and obtained a patent on Vastu. Now, next. Now, Krishna and Arjuna chariot. We think that is the Krishna and Arjuna is giving it. Now, the same chariot is placed in some country in the US. Then, Bible teacher organized in Columbia, USA. They are misusing. Well, they use it, no problem at all for me. But they should not say same symbolic culture. Misusing Indian religious sculptures. Sculptures banana. They taken exactly. If you look at that, Lord Krishna and Arjuna was on chariot. And now, replica of chariots. Krishna and Arjuna chariot Mahabharata. Incorporating in their religion, interpreting differently. Lord Jesus is giving an instruction to his subordinate. Let them do it, no problem. But they should not use the same symbolic. Next. Now, a church in Kerala. Lord Jesus standing on the chariot. Look at it. Then, Kerala, India, in front of the church, use the chariots. They can use it, no problem. But not the same replica. Exactly same error. After 100 years, they may claim it. What is the proof? They are already illustrated, well-established Hindu religious text. This is Kerala. Next. Now, need a copyright. In the past, ancient sages were broad-minded. Vedic scriptures benefit for the entire mankind. They were only theist and atheist that time. Theist and atheist, don't they? And no copying, no stealing that time. Because trust was there. Belief was there, somebody has done the work. Then, present, different religious, languages, copying, stealing, disputes for ownership, लड़ाई कर रहे हैं अपन. Then, concept of the patent copyright, Indian law. I worked out the judges also. Case was all filed. Please, sir. Now, lawyer Mr. M.J. Anand argued in the case that as per the Indian Copyright Act 1957, Indian copyright is valid for 60 years only. Copyright valid only for 60 years. I am talking about behind 60 years. Then, no copyright religious test. They are given by the ancestors. Long back, he said that no need. But no need because that time everything was there. But no scripture will be translated. The script is not children. Then, free for all, for the benefit of mankind. Can I have a copyright? They said, like a TV serials, derived ideas, but not for the original text. That's what the judge mentioned. Next. Now, my argument is, I am arguing now. Copyright Vedic scripture should be for infinite time as long as the universe exists. It's eternal, Sanatan, given by Bharat. Then, software technologies transforming the Sanskrit language into various languages. Script is being changed. Look at that. Hindi में अपन बोलते हैं लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु. Original by Indian sages. Now, Germans also making. Then, Japan also making. After certain period, years, centuries, they claim their words. Next. Now, Indian wisdom, Vedic text, original, rich. If it is translated into other languages after many years, Indian authors and sages' names altered, encrypted. Change भी हो जाएगा. व्यास नहीं होगा. Then, add new names as per their choice. Text will belong to that country. Proposal. To avoid a future conflicts and complications, Indian government must go for the copyrights of Indian scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, other divine texts. We the whole copyright. Next. Now, Government of India must approach International Copyright Office. World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, is there for patents. If no copyright, not challenged now, repudiations or replications after some decades, centuries, Vedas, Indian scriptures may not belong to Bharat. Then no person support you at the time. Hindu population decreasing in the world, now just 15%. After 100 years, it may go to 5%. 10%. आपका कोई support करने वाला नहीं होगा. Decision will be made on the basis of majority that time. Then, so difficult to defend that time. Our next generation will suffer. Next, last one. Now, Vedas are mother of all languages. It's mother for all languages. We don't blame anybody. India is a spiritual country. Anybody can enter the country. Then, we must be given respect. We have 3 festivals. I'm talking different now. We have 3 festivals. Vasanta Panchami we celebrate as Saraswati Devi Puja. Magha Shukla Panchami falls in the month of February and March. Guru Purnima, birthday of Vyasadeva. Ashadha Shukla Purnima in the month of July. And Gita Jayanti, birth of Gita. These are the 3 things we celebrate in India as a divine. I am proposing that World Veda Day. Why can't World Veda Day? Like a Yoga Day we have it, Meditation Day. Why can't a Veda Day? क्यों नहीं हो सकता? And our international colleges called International Veda Day. On Guru Purnima, birthday Veda Vyasa. Then Ashadha Shukla Purnima, we can. Well, it's not my job, only Government of India. Now we are giving the proposal. Next. Now, I am giving a proposal for the copyright of Vedas, Bharat and World Veda Day to Government of India. Next. These are the references I've collected. Next. Those are the differences. Now, I am basically man of physics, working on Vedic science. My idea is, my intuition, my passion is to attract the science. Bhakti बहुत है अपने इंडिया में, but science concept नहीं. To confuse the Western people, you have to show it, as she was telling, practically. But one more thing, spirituality cannot all experiments. It's your thoughts, it's an application, realization will be there. Now, and I'm writing different articles basically. I got a government project. I'm doing a research on Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and law of karma and soul. My objective is make soul. Now, my topics are Puranam, Purnam, everything is Purnam. The whole world is Purnam. I am Purnam, my son is also Purnam. Mango is Purnam, seed is also Purnam. Everything is whole world is Purnam. Then, man in prison, where is the prison boy? You can't escape anywhere. Your final escape is the liberation. Then, rest in peace. Spiritual beings, spiritual education. If somebody talks spiritualism, my heart will be happy. If somebody talks about the meaningless talks, I am not happy. Yeah. Then, temples, employment civilization. A letter to God. These are my research papers. So this is the idea I got in. I talked to many people, and I am also proposing to take the signatures. Those who are interested can do. I am planning to present this idea given to Ministry of Arts. Dr. Professor A.B. Shukla, IS officer, is working on IKS. Pramod why to circulate to give a talk in JNU and take some signatures. We will present to the government of India. They have to take the lead. It's not a job of mine or yours. The whole country has to take it filing the case. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation on copyright of Vedas, Bharat World of Vedas Days. So it was very interesting, and we should understand the need of patenting and copywriting our Indian knowledge system, because I will also give you one example. We highly need to take copyright of our epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata also, because very soon West or some other countries are going to claim that these epics were written by their own sages, and it had happened in other countries like Mysore. He is co-coordinator of the International Assurance Cell of his institution. He is also a program officer of the National Service Scheme Department. Now I would like to, I would request you to present the paper and kindly adhere to the time, because your presentation is the last presentation and we have to just finish the session.
Very good afternoon, one and all. Dear Sudha ma'am and dear participants, I have worked on Banjara community and its knowledge system. We have this community in our district. This community is found in many states of our country, and it's known by various names: Limani, Gor, Lambada. And Latur district has Latur district of Marathwada region. We found many small villages of Banjara community known as Tandas. These are the groups of villages, 50 villages, 40 villages, 50 houses, homes are 60 or near about 100. And these Tandas are settled in mountainous region of our district, and they have their own cultural and ecological wisdom hub. The study aims to explore and document the rich tradition of these Banjara communities. This knowledge, this tradition is rooted in oral tradition, and I have done data collection from, did data collection from near about 10 villages of my district. Silent features of these communities are, they are the remote habitat. They are away from villages also, Indian villages. And we can find true Bharat in these Tandas. They have community spirit. They are united by their tradition. In this 21st century, even children are not calling father to their fathers, but they are united. They are under the guidance of Naik, head of that Tanda. They have independent knowledge, but they do not have their own script. They have special costume. They wear kurta, dhoti, and elders wear turban. And they have simple economy. They are dependent on livestock, and they are workers, and they collect medicine from forest. First of all, I studied herbal medicine practices of this community. Neem tree, they are using method of decoction, infusion politics, and infusing plant extract into oil and ghee. They have given priority to neem tree because of its antiseptic, antifungal, and antibacterial properties. Crushed leaves are also used in politics for healing cuts, wounds, and skin infections. decoction of leaves is used to reduce fever, purify blood, stimulate appetite, and cure problem of digestion. Even twigs, most of the members of that community use twigs of that neem tree as a brush till today also. Even the flowers of neem tree are used in infusion, and we use chemical product to expel mosquitoes in our homes, but they use dried leaves, smoke up dried leaves, and that helps to expel mosquitoes from their homes. The moa tree is also one of the most valued trees. They have the medicinal properties. The nutrient juice is very useful for cough. Recently, my mother had a problem of cough, and I went to many expert doctors, MDs, but they could not cure. I bought a tonic bottle of this moa tree, and it cured completely. It also promotes digestive health and evaluate constipation. For that, fruits of moa trees are used. Decoction made from the bark of help to manage diabetes, reduce inflammation, and treat diarrhea. Moa extracts are also well known for their benefits in women's health, aiding in regulation of menstrual cycle and alleviating pain. Tulsi, it's a sacred tree we find everywhere in our country, but we don't find in cities. But every village of that Tanda or home of that Tanda has this Tulsi, and it has also lots of benefits, and it is decoction is made of Tulsi leaves, honey and ginger. It's very useful, and we use this decoction through Corona period. Most of the residents of our country use this decoction. This has antibiotic and antivirus properties also. Tulsi is used to alleviate stress and enhance mental stress due to its calming properties, which are used through herbal teas by inhaling the aroma of crushed leaves. It is cultivated, and it's spiritual plant, so it gives positive energy, and it expels negative energy by bowing to that tree. They have agricultural practices. We used to have before 40-50 years, but still they are practicing these agricultural practices. They are cultivating millets and drought-resistant crops. Now monocropping we find everywhere in India, but they are using intercropping, and they are also following the crop rotation pattern. They have indigenous seed. They have the technique to collect. Indigenous seeds. They collect healthy plants from their farm, and they store these seeds for next season. They have organic farming, since their life is based on livestock. They are using manure and many remainings of farm, and they have the techniques to preserve indigenous seed. Banjara embroidery, we have so many pictures on Google, we can find that this embroidery is very, very distinct from other embroideries. They have livestock stocks also. They rear cattle, goats, sheep, buffaloes, and poultry. Poultry, we call it gauran in our language, and this is famous. They get a good amount of money also by selling these poultries, and these are the nutritious food items. They have the governance system also. They have Naik. Naik is the head of the village, and he controls whole Tanda with the help of elders of that community. The criminals are punished, keeping in the mind the nature of crime. They don't go to police station and court for justice. Justice is delivered in their tandas. Banjara Panchayat is the supreme court for this community. Findings are like everything. This oral tradition we had in a Guru Shishya Parampara oral tradition. We have this Ayurveda principles. They are also following Ayurveda principles. They have agricultural practices. like intercropping, crop rotation, organic farming. They have livestock, so both economic and social purpose, reflecting traditional Indian economy of the villages. And they have Banjara Panchayat function similarly to ancient Indian self-government system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish, for completing your paper on time. And I must congratulate you. Your paper was very interesting as it was highlighting the need of preserving the Indian traditional medicine, which is very, very much in demand nowadays. So I would not take much time to conclude, giving concluding remarks. And I would like to conclude that we are very ancient civilization, surviving civilization, and we have a lot of knowledge, Indian, which is known as Indian knowledge system. Now we are discussing that aspect only. And in this session we have discussed 5 papers from diverse topics. And the first topic was aspect of non-dualism in the Indian knowledge system through the lenses of Ashtravarkra, where the speaker introduced us to the Indian philosophy and spiritualism. As we know, the West always looks towards us for the questions which they cannot answer regarding, like, as you discussed, the conflict. And then they look towards India for the answers, because only Indian philosophy can give answers to their questions. And I will give you one example. One President Putin and our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, they were having one discussion on economic forum in Petersburg. And that time, one journalist asked one question to the Prime Minister, and he answered very well. Then Mr. Putin said, please don't ask such questions to these people because they are the ancient civilization and they have answer for everything. So they have also accepted that we can answer to each and everything. It is because of our Indian knowledge system that gives us strength, and people are looking towards us for our spiritualism and for our philosophy. Problems are with them, and solution, though they claim that they are developed countries, but still they look for the solution towards us. And in this series we have the second paper was by Dr. Abhishek Karmakar, where he spoke about the constructions of narratives, deconstructing and reconstructing. He emphasized to deconstruct the Eurocentric narrative, constructing Indian narratives for Indianizing India beyond the Occidental trap of Western rage. We should take pride always on being Indian and on our culture, literature, etc. I'll give you one example. Like if we will say that this mobile is made in India, so people will think, okay, this is not of a very good quality. If I will say this pen I bought from America, then immediately you will think this pen is of very high quality. So first we have to come out of that notion that we should feel proud on being Indian, and we should always think that we can do better, much better than others. Then only we can come out of this narrative and we can build our own narratives. So, and the third paper was by Dr. Nishala, where she explained how consciousness is the key which differentiates Indian philosophy from Western philosophy. So again, they are looking towards us only. And the fourth presentation was by Professor Pramod, who has highlighted about the need of copyright and patenting, which is an important, very, very important aspect nowadays. And we have to protect our traditional knowledge and our scriptures, our literature, because they are the source of wisdom. And this will give us sense of pride to our nation, and it will also help us in economic, financially, of course, for economic prosperity of the country. And it is very, very important, sir. And the fifth paper was Dr. Sachin Sheshrao, who has presented on the IKS Indian knowledge system of the Banjara community in the Latur. He has already highlighted about the Indian traditional medicines, which is very, very important nowadays, because we are talking about organic medicines, organic everything, organic food. We are very much focusing on that. So we should relook our own treasure. We know we have a lot of knowledge, but where we are lacking that we are not preserving that, we are not documenting that, and we are not glorifying that. So this is high time to glorify our Indian traditional knowledge system also. So thank you so much all the presenters for the wonderful presentations. And I would also like to thank organizers of this conference for inviting me to chair this session. It was really interesting to interact with you all. Thank you so much.
I thanks to Chair Manradha ma'am for her enriching guidance throughout the session. I also thanks all the speakers for enlightening us on different aspects of Indian knowledge system. We will be ending the session by distributing the certificate. I request ma'am, please come forward for distributing the certificate.
And I'm really sorry I couldn't introduce Dr. Kamla because I was not having your introduction. I was just many congratulations. It was a very interesting topic. I'll take Dr. PPT and then I'll read it once again. Dr. Abhishek Karmakar. Dr. Nishala